This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for the Intentionality Gurus with Candace Pollock. And Candace sent me the title for today's program, and I have to tell you, that's all she ever does is send me the title, and usually I can read into it. But today's title is Are You Willing? And I'm not so sure if I should be saying yes or no at this point.
So what did occur to you? What interpretations could you have made out of it?
Um, well, now that I'm looking at it, um, are you the type of person who says yes all the time? So are you willing? And my hand always goes up. Oh yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. And then afterwards, I think about it like, why did I say I would do it? Um, and there are other people who are always saying no because they don't have any time to do it. So that's what I think we're talking about today.
So I guess we'll find out.
Okay.
So the backdrop is the Intentionality Gurus is, about discovering the hidden iceberg of things that drive a lot of the things that make, the way we think, the way we behave, and the feelings we have. All right.
Okay.
And we've had this long series that I was basing on the 15 commitments of conscious leadership. And this is the tail end of it. All right. So it was, as I said way back when I first started the podcast, basing it on the 15 commitments, it was a really meaty book. It was kind of intimidating for me because I have the attention span of a gnat anymore. But little by little in the podcast, we've been taking the commitments, not all of them, but many of them, and doing a deeper dive. So we're, in a sense, this isn't one of the commitments, but it's an element around it. So the idea is this. In the 15 commitments in the book by the authors, there is above the line and below the line. We've talked about that in prior podcasts. So above the line is when a person is open and looking at opportunities to learn, even if they're not necessarily happy in the moment about what's going on. And below the line is when we're defensive, closed off, and we feel like a victim, like we're out of control. And to the extent we can flip the switch of our thinking and know when we're starting out above the line or below the line, and then switching to the optimum one, which is being above the line, that's where more things open up for us. Then we learned about other ways of being, the to me, the by me, through me, and as me that we talked in the prior podcasts. And we learned that all of our struggles, well, and that may be a very broad statement, arise from us believing that we're right about our point of view, that however we're perceiving the situation is the right way to perceive it. Okay. And I think I mentioned very recently, I think even the last time we spoke, that I used to say a lot, and it still slips out from time to time, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. And my younger sister said to me, oh, Candy, you always say that. And my response was, well, it's true. I'm so busy, but it really is a frame of reference, a perspective.
Sure.
So today we're going to talk about willingness to change.
Oh, okay.
All right. So the authors talk about it in the context that it's different than knowledge about knowing how to change. We've talked about changing habits in the WHOOP method and the BJ Fogg method of a formula for change and so on. And then there's wanting to change. That's not the same thing as having knowledge about how to change. And it's not the same thing as willingness to change. So some of the evidence-based techniques that we have talked about previously are not the same thing as willingness, and we can apply them to habits, mindsets, and other elements in our life. But what the authors are trying to get at is their perspective is, and I guess they're right in their perspective, is that most of us don't really want to change. We lack willingness, right?
I believe that. Yes.
Okay. But that hadn't really occurred to me on a very deep level, if at all, prior to me reading it. And they quote a man by the name of Hale Dwoskin. And he said, when somebody invites you out, say for an evening to get together with a bunch of friends or something, and you say, oh, well, I have to finish that project and I have to pick up the kids and I have to do this and that. He's saying that's an excuse, and it's some indication that you want credit for something that you never really intend to do. So you're kind of giving lip service. Yeah, I'll see if I can do it, if I can work around these things and so on. And he's saying it's a form of trying when for the invitation, but when we don't honestly have a plan to do it.
Got
So
it.
what are your thoughts on that?
Um, so I live with somebody who does it all the time. Um, and it's not me. Um, and you know, driving to work this morning, I was thinking about something very similar in that um, it's not for me to change that person, um, but I have to change how I respond to their behavior. Um, and I have that choice of letting it, upset me that, oh, yeah, sure, you're going to try, but I hear what you're really saying. You're not going to do it. Um, and I can get upset about that, or I can just say to myself, you know what? If he tries and he does it, that's great. And if he doesn't, well, you know, that's not on me, it's on him. And I'm trying to be more open about that, that it, I can't change people's responses. I can only change my own acceptance to them.
Yeah, and then for ourselves, the idea is to be really clear about, the kinds of things we say we want to do, or we like the lip service to, getting together with friends, for instance, when we really don't want to do it, to be really clear in our own minds for ourselves, but also in fairness to the other people as well. And I hadn't seen it like that. So the thing that really excites me when I come across these things is that little bit of a distinction, that little toggle point, or the forks in the road that we always talk about, that just being able to say, okay, I have to really dig down deep in myself and say, yeah, I know I should do this. I know it would be, the better thing to do, and so on. And I might articulate that, but am I really willing to do it? And that question had never popped into my head before. And with all the stuff I've been exposed to, you'd think I would have stumbled on something along these lines. So when they talk about the willingness, um, they talk about, are you willing to take 100% responsibility, not more, not less, for this issue? All right, so for your decision or whatever it happens to be. Are you willing to let go of being right? So they take all of the 15 commitments and they converted them into, are you willing questions? All right. And I'm not going to do that today, but there are just a couple of the other ones. Are you willing to let go of your beliefs in scarcity? Because we've talked about that as one of the 15 commitments. But in your own life, can you think of an area where you have said you want to change and it hasn't happened?
Oh, I know there are areas I can't. Well,
Maybe one or two.
yeah, there. I know that I've been through many, and the one I think of most is um, not wanting to judge people before I hear them out, and it's something that um, I think has become difficult, especially with those of us who do a lot of texting and short emails or quick voicemails, um, we're not really getting the complete dialogue out. And so I find myself judging somebody when they send me a quick text that says, maybe just says, maybe. And it's like, maybe what? Why can't you tell me what maybe means? There's more to it. And sometimes I start judging, oh, you just don't want to tell me. Oh, you don't like me. And I think we need better communication.
Yeah, we definitely need better communication. So in that context, what would you change?
I think what I'm trying to change is not to um, not to just accept something that I don't understand. If I don't understand it, um, go back and dig deeper into it and ask for more information rather than to make assumptions or to get angry with the person for not giving me the information that I needed. So
So,
I need to be I need to communicate better so that um, I get the answer that I need, and that answer comes with no judgment.
and where do you have control in that interaction?
Um, Being more direct myself,
Okay, so how would that show up as a change?
um, because I've allowed in the past um, just to make the assumptions and never find out what's really happening.
Something's wrong here. It must be me.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, wait, that's my mantra.
yeah, yeah. Or what is wrong with that person that they don't understand what I need? Um,
Ah,
yeah,
that's a good one.
you know,
Okay.
and and I realize more and more it really is about having a much better dialogue. I remember the day before computers, and obviously I'm aging myself, but if you wanted to share a conversation with somebody or you wanted to ask a question, you either picked up the phone and you called them and had an actual conversation with them, or you got together with them in person and had that conversation. We didn't do these, snippets of, um, are you available? And somebody doesn't even know exactly what that means. Am I available now, tomorrow, next week? Am I available to do what? But we assume that we know these things. And then, maybe they didn't get that text right away. And then when they finally get the text, they write, what do you need? Or what do you want? With that type of communication, um, it's we're left in a confused state. And for me, I get frustrated and angry.
Well, and it's very time consuming and
Yeah.
interestingly, I just finished reading a book that talks about it in the context of email, and it was really fascinating. So I may end up having to talk about it on a podcast, but it said exactly what you're saying, that he calls it asynchronistic communication, because you don't know when the receiver is going to receive it. What's going on their end of the equation is not happening one on one,
Right.
and you can't read the body signals because you're not in person. And then you have to thread these disparate emails together to piece it like a piece of a puzzle,
Yep.
um, to put it all together, and then maybe you'll have the answer, but that's a boatload of time wasted and so on.
Well, and
So,
like you said before, you always would use, the term, I'm busy. Okay. I'm always busy. And we assume everybody is so busy that we can't pick up the phone and call. Well, what we forget, and I know I'm really bad at this, it's like, so what if I get their voicemail? That's okay. Leave them as detailed a message as I have to without rambling forever. And make that connection, and then we can get together and talk. But instead, we think, oh, well, this is faster. I'm just gonna text Candace and say, are you ready? And then maybe you'll look at that text tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm getting frustrated because I haven't gotten a response.
Yeah,
Um,
it's an expectation of immediate response, being on demand. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So in this context, then being more direct to either pick up the phone and call, or to express yourself that call me, don't send me a one-word answer, oblique one-word answer.
Right.
All right, so you have the knowledge about what you want to change, and you have some ideas about how to execute on that knowledge. Are you willing to change?
Actually, I really think I am, because it's exhausting, the way I've been doing it. And I think it will be easier just to pick up the phone. I'm thinking of one person in particular that I've been trying to connect with, and I keep feeling like I don't want to disturb him. And yet, maybe my emails are already disturbing him, or my text messages. And it would be much easier just to make that phone call. Okay. And, um, find out, can he have a conversation when he picks up? And if he can't, then schedule it for a time when the two of us can talk. Um, and I sometimes think that I should be doing that more with my clients as well, because I know I'm giving them, these short encryptic messages, which most of the time, when we do start talking, it's like, what was that all about? And then I'll go back and read and go, I have no idea.
Forget where we started.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, it's ironic because that book that I just finished is talking about that. And when I read it, I was thinking about that. I'm too busy, and recognized that part of it is because of that, candy on demand expectation in my work, on the phone as well as by email and now text. And it's almost impossible to stay on top of and have focus, unfractured focus.
Right.
So maybe this is really timely for you then. So in terms of way back, we talked about Dr. Nathaniel Branden, and he wrote the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. And one of his methods of, uh, improving self-esteem was what he calls, I can't remember what they were, open-ended questions that basically they were sentences you needed to complete. Okay.
Okay.
So the sentences would be things like, if I bring more awareness to my life today, and then you're supposed to sit down and complete these blocks of opened, ended sentences, just stream of consciousness in 10 minutes, as much as you can get down. You have to do the full 10 minutes. And it's generally about 5 questions per block per week. And he has like 30 weeks of level 1 questions. And then I didn't get through the second level yet. But the idea is that it just lets your brain come up with whatever. There's no right or wrong answer to it, and so on. And so I was reminded of that with the questions that the authors wrote. Are you willing to take 100% responsibility, not more, not less, for this issue? Are you willing to let go of being right? Are you willing to let go of your beliefs for scarcity? Are you willing to be above the line? It could be any of the things that they talked about in the book.
Okay.
And then I was thinking of it in the context of open-ended sentences that Dr. Branden used. So in this context, it would be, are you willing to let go of resistance? Or it might be, if I were willing to let go of resistance, and then you would fill in the blanks. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
All right. If what happens and my thoughts, feelings, behaviors around resistance, then what? All right. If I have shoulds, then fill in the blank. So what occurs to you when you hear me say that? I know it was a little disjointed, but
So, again, I'm going to reflect back to this morning. Um, and I don't even know exactly what put me in the mood and what got me thinking, but there was some miscommunication at home before I left for work. And I was feeling stressed that I felt I had to say I was sorry, even though I knew I didn't really do anything wrong. Okay. And nobody really did anything wrong. It was just a misunderstanding. And um, it took me a while and kept going through my mind. And maybe it's because I knew that we were doing the show today. And I kept thinking, you are allowed to feel certain things. So you're feeling frustrated that there was miscommunication. Um, but do you have to feel frustrated? And then I realized if I don't feel frustrated, how am I going to feel? And I was like walking myself through that as I'm driving to work. And it was like I forgot what frustrated me. I wasn't frustrated anymore. There was no wrong, there was no right. And I felt a relief. And it was just processing, that I didn't have to be right, but I also didn't have to feel I was wrong and say I'm sorry for something that, you know, just happened.
yeah, and what I just sensed was that it just kind of that element of right or wrong just kind of dissipated.
Absolutely. And in the past, I would have held on to whatever that angst was that I was feeling. Um,
Whether it was right or wrong. I
yep,
mean, not that it was right or wrong, but whether the position you were, the side you were on was
exactly.
right or wrong.
And I would just be like, you know, why am I? And I would always think about why am I always wrong? Okay, even though I may not be believing it, that's the sense I would have, and I would just keep blowing it out of proportion to the point that I was just an unhappy person probably for the rest of the day, until maybe something happened to burst me out of it. Um, but I didn't allow myself to come out of it. Something had to happen for me to just like let it dissipate. But now I'm learning, um, to start processing it. Like, am I really mad? Was it something wrong? How could have I handled it differently? Should I have handled it differently? And as I process it, it's like, you know, well, I took this path today. And so that's okay. Let's see where it's going to lead me next.
So it sounds to me that at first it could have been you had no choice and now you have a choice, and maybe that's where the freedom is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The fork in the road.
Yep.
Cool. So in this conversation today, just to kind of loop it around, we can be asking ourselves, what do I say I want to change? We can make a list of the things we want to change, long list, short list, list, temporary list, whatever. And then we can figure out which ones, if any, trigger us with some kind of resistance. I certainly have a list of shoulds change. And then what happens? What are my thoughts? What are my feelings? What are my behaviors when we have a resistance? And specifically ID the ones that are the shoulds, because most of us are going to have a lot of those on the list,
Absolutely.
right? And then where are we defensive, frustrated, annoyed, the things you were just discussing, how ironic. And when I think or question, or somebody questions us about our changes and so on. And then where internally might I say, well, I'm going to try it, just like the people inviting you out and saying, yeah, I'll try to do it, but we don't really have our heart in it.
Yep.
So before we got on the air, we were talking about the importance of saying no to more things. And so what this question, am I willing, really has helped me get clearer on that. It forces me to pause before I say yes. All right. And I think you and I are very similar in that we want to be helpful. We want to be, good team players and everything else. And we'll, have ideas about things, and we can often say yes before we should say yes. But this question I thought was so powerful because it really forces you to pause and say, all right, which fork in that road am I going to take?
Exactly. And it's funny because today, when I was at my other job, I'm supposed to walk out between 2:30 and 2:45 to do my report. Um, but at 2:30, the department was not being covered as well as it should be. And I took it upon myself because I felt I wanted to um, make sure that there was coverage before I left. To make a long story short, I ended up working a little bit later than I typically do. And one of my coworkers came up to me and he said, "Karen, weren't you supposed to leave?" And I said, "But I couldn't leave you in the position you were in." And he said, "Yes, you could have." And I said, "No, this is on me. Okay. This is what I felt I should and wanted to do. It wasn't just I should."
Not that it was a policy, it was your own values.
Right. And he looked at me and he said, "Nobody has ever done that before." And I said, "Well, I hope I'm not the last person." But, I could have just picked up at 2:30 and walked out, which I do on most occasions because that's what I'm supposed to do. But I just felt that it was something that I wanted to do for him, especially because he was working really, really hard and he's a good guy. And, you know, it didn't take anything out of me to do it. Um, so it wasn't that I was saying yes because I was trying to win points or didn't know how to say no.
Right. It wasn't a should. Uh-huh.
Exactly. And so I think when you can realize that you can make choices um, and feel good about them, it colors your world differently. I mean, I got in my car to come home, and typically I would have sat there and done my report and was like, "No, my report will get in. I'll do it when I get home. It's faster on the computer than on my phone, anyways." Um, and you know, that's just the way it happened. And so the amount of time it took me to put in my report, no, I'm not getting paid for those 10 minutes or whatever, but that's okay because it was done at my convenience. Um, and I can feel good about it.
And it was your choice.
My choice. Right.
So you were willing to do it.
Yep. Exactly.
So for anybody listening, you may want to ask yourself that question, periodically throughout the day, what am I willing? And whatever happens to be presented to you, and see what pops up.
Sounds wonderful. And we'll do this again in 2 weeks. And we want to thank everybody who is listening to us and finding us on Facebook. Um, keep listening, keep passing the information along. And if you want to join in the conversation, we'd be more than glad to have you on a recording. Maybe I could just sit back and relax.
Yes, yes, yes.
Have a great day. You take care.
All right, you too, Karen. Thank you so much.
Bye bye now.